In a city and a region that too often throw history to the wind, where buildings are tossed out without a second thought, I'm proud now to share an example of where things have gone well. 30 miles northwest of Houston, Cypress, Texas is far from the small railroad town it once was. Since the 1980s, the entire northwest corridor has boomed, adding street after street of homes, retail centers along the highway, and hundreds of thousands of people. And here, hidden on the old Hempstead Road, tucked behind a Lowe's and a Target, is an agglomeration of nearly every important historic building from the once town of Cypress. 15 years ago, Gene Zaborski had been bequeathed most of the historic center of town, and change was coming quickly. As development inched northwest from Houston towards the town center, he sold off much of his family's land. But in a regionally unprecedented act that would benefit generations to come, he donated the historic town center, including his family's gas station, home, general store, and dance hall, to Harris County to become a historical park. Zaborski's grandparents, the Jurgen family, owned most of the historic town of Cypress, including a general store and dance hall bearing their name. Cypress was positioned along the Union Pacific Hearn rail line on the adjacent and parallel Hempstead Road, what would later become Highway 290. German settlement in the area dates back to the mid-1800s, but a string of hurricanes and fires destroyed most of the original buildings. What's left today dates back to the early 1900s and spans about 60 years. Jurgen Hall was built in 1915 by Edward Jurgen to replace an 1800s dance hall that had burned down. Oil had just been discovered in the area, and the town boomed as an outpost of civilization. For nearly a century, it served as a dance hall and pillar of the German community, and later a short duration as a courthouse. It was relocated to the park in 2005, and today functions as a community center and an occasional event space. The Jurgen General Store was also moved here when the park opened. For most of its history, it was the most significant retail outlet in Cypress. It didn't close until 1993, and at one time had an 8-room hotel on the second floor and also served as the village's post office. A few hundred feet down the road, the family's old Humble Oil service station also stands as a relic, albeit to a different era. Dating back to 1956, this is the newest building on the site, as well as the only historic building here still in its original location. Ironically, this modernist structure was built from a kit designed by Humble Oil and engineered to be disassembled and moved as newer highways were built. The yellow train depot on the rear of the site is a replica of the one that originally laid alongside the tracks. Today it holds the Darlene Roth Research Library, the Cypress Historical Society's genealogy and research archives. As the once dirt Hempstead Road was expanded over the years, nearly every building had to be relocated at some point, some more than once. In the late 90s, the 290 Expresso was built and circumvented the old town of Cypress, and the stretch of what had been the busiest road in the area was now nearly empty. Zaborski's shut down the store shortly thereafter, and until 2005, the historic buildings were largely unused and in decline. As the nature of life in Cypress changed and development grew outward along the 290 Expressway, Zaborski was all but forced to sell the land. Drawing a compromise between economic necessity and valuing the town's historical roots, he set aside a small plot around the family's old Humble Oil station, a piece large enough to hold the multitude of historic buildings that he owned. What was once a standalone railroad town in the prairies of Texas is now a museum of sorts, all nestled onto less than 3 acres within shouting distance of a Lowe's. It is a place of preservation in a sea of removal and replacement.